Welcome to Boxing During Dinner. We're back here at RANDAZZO'S.
It's good.
And before we start into the boxing, we want to wish Joe DiMaggio, no longer with us, but a happy birthday. His birthday just passed.
Mr. DiMaggio.
Mr. DiMaggio, how's your pasta? Our fans don't know the joke, but maybe one day we'll do the skit for them. And on another side note, Homeland and Boardwalk Empire. What great shows.
I don't want any spoilers. I don't watch Homeland, but I am an episode behind on Boardwalk. I didn't see last night, but I heard it was crazy.
Best one of the season.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
And Homeland, one of the best ones too. But a lot to talk about, as I say every week. And this week is no joke. We do have a lot to talk about. First off, Hector Macho Camacho. It's been a cruel year for boxing. I mean, it seems like every 2 or 3 episodes we're talking about somebody in the boxing world that's passed away. Hector Macho Camacho shot and killed, disconnected on Saturday. One of the flashiest champs of all time. I mean, talk about flashy fighters like Naseem Hamed and all that. He started this trend in the 80s, and with his skirt-like trunks, his flashiness, the macho time. I mean, this guy was not a fan favorite. My dad hated Macho Camacho. Every time he fought, he always cheered against him.
Let's also note that Armando's Cuban in heritage, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, so the old Cuban men don't like the guys that come out and with the flashiness. They like the real fighters, which we'll talk about later, Guerrero and Berto. But Macho Camacho, man, what a sad way to end what was a crazy life.
Macho Camacho, like you said, in so many ways was a trailblazer for the way a lot of fighters market themselves today, and it's sad to say that his story is going to be one more of what could have been than what was. He had all of the gifts in the world as a fighter, and he really never maximized his talent. He's probably best known for fighting a bunch of world-class fighters either during their primes or after their primes, but never really in his own prime when he was against them. He beat the likes of Duran and Leonard, after they were past their peak. And then when he was past his own peak is when he fought guys like De La Hoya and Trinidad and lost.
Yeah, the better Camacho was early in his career when he beat Bazooka Limon, Jose Luis Ramirez. He beat Chapo Rosario, earning the fight against Chavez down the road, which he lost. But that Macho Camacho was a very good fighter, probably one of the best in that era. And one thing about Macho Camacho, whether he fought a guy, whether it was past his prime or past their prime or both past their primes, he fought everybody. When you look at his resume, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he honestly has one of the more impressive name resumes that you're going to see in boxing in maybe the past 20 years or so. Unfortunately, what's sad is the circumstances which surrounded his death, which we don't really have the time or know how, I guess, to fully explore, but he lived a troubled life, and that's kind of ultimately what was his undoing, both in his career and from what we're hearing, also in his demise as well. But when you have a celebrated figure like that, and I use the term celebrated very loosely because some people reviled him and others adored him for the same reasons, but it's hard to ignore somebody like that regardless. The way that Floyd Mayweather now is loved or hated.
Absolutely.
Camacho, in many ways was just like that in his generation. He was talked about, he was the center of attention, and anytime you lose a personality like that, the sport is dealt a loss.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was, a personality. And whether you liked him or not in the ring or look down upon the stuff he did outside the ring, because his outside the ring record, his rap sheet was nothing to celebrate. The guy who had problems with drugs for years. He was arrested on numerous occasions. But those that had a chance to meet him, and I met him on several occasions, got the chance to interview him. He was a funny guy. He was a delight to be around. He was a really, really nice person. He just got in with the wrong crowd, got in with the wrong, I guess the bad habits.
Right.
And that that took him on that downward spiral. But he was a very nice person.
It's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, with this sport of boxing that has so many success stories, yet so many, a lot more failed stories of guys who came from bad circumstances and ultimately didn't make the most of what they had. And I hate to continue to bring down a negative side to the Camacho story, but the fact of the matter is that is a big part of what his story is. But again, the biggest theme here, I think, not to take away from his, is boxing has dealt another loss. And like you said, it seems like boxing slowly is taking away an entire generation of characters.
Emmanuel Stewart.
Emmanuel Stewart. I mean, we're just starting. Burt Sugar. In the past year, and
Dundee.
even Dundee. All these guys. Are Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier.
Everybody is. it seems that everybody's dying, and I know that's a terrible thing to say, but another loss.
Well, you know, for him, at least he gets to rest in peace now. And David, now getting into a better topic, you know, David, who rarely ever drinks, is having a drink to celebrate the Guerrero-Berto fight, which was a great fight. I mean, talk about throwback. This is the type of fight that, you know, your dads and your grandparents and your grandfather spoke about. You know, these two guys not afraid to get into it. You know, early on in the fight, you thought Guerrero was just going to walk through Berto and knock him out, which during the second round, I'm like, this is over. What an impressive win for Guerrero. Then Berto with both eyes closed. I mean, he was like this. I mean, I can't even see like this. I can barely see you. Berto fights through two busted eyes, messes up Guerrero's eye, and they fight in a phone booth the rest of the time. They fight 10 seconds after the final bell. I mean, what a great fight.
It was so many things. Great is definitely one of the adjectives I would use to describe it. My heart was racing the entire time, and in that sense, it reminded me a lot of the Victor Ortiz Andre Berto fight from a year before. I stylistically didn't like the fight. I think it was unpleasant for viewing from a style point of view. But all kudos go to Robert Guerrero, who I want to continue to sleep on. I picked him for this fight. It turns out to be one of those times when the prophecy comes correct.
We picked him like barely. I mean, we were like on the fence about this fight.
But he outclassed Andre Berto now, and I'll get to a couple comments. One of our viewers, David Cordova, was somebody, and among others, who said that they were never high on Berto to begin with and couldn't understand the hype that had surrounded him. But let's not take away from the fact that Berto, if for nothing else, is an elite B-level fighter, and he's got that punching power. The couple times that he threw uppercuts that I thought were going to disconnect Guerrero's chin from his body, and he walked right through him. His game plan worked. It was not for those looking for a gracefully stylish fight. But Guerrero, used his pressure to suffocate Berto against the ropes, caught him with, combinations, attacked the body with relentless force. I mean, headshots were almost even in this fight, but body shots were not even close. I mean, Guerrero just tore him up on the inside, and that's ultimately what made the difference. Guerrero couldn't even see out of his own eye from the ninth round on. I got to give Berto all the props in the world for overcoming what was a huge deficit at the beginning of the fight when it looked like he was going to be knocked out by round 3. I mean, my heart is still racing now. Yeah,
you got to give credit to Berto. He came back strong, and at the end of the fight, David, what made those final rounds interesting was that even though Berto couldn't see out of both eyes, Guerrero couldn't see out of one, either of the two guys could have had a chance to win at the end. Which is the best part. You still gave Berto that outside chance of knocking Guerrero out. Like you said, Guerrero's a guy that a lot of people sleep on. He's a good fighter. He's an excellent fighter. His record speaks for itself. I still don't think he's one of the top in the world, but this performance probably gives him that fight that he's always wanted against Floyd Mayweather. The Pacquiao fight looks like it may never happen. I mean, Pacquiao may lose against Juan Manuel Marquez, let's be honest, and Pacquiao doesn't look all that interested in boxing anymore. So who's left for Mayweather to fight? This may be a guy that he may be able to fight in May, as he usually does. Guerrero's a good kid. He's a guy that's easy to cheer for, has a good backstory. And Robert Guerrero did himself a lot of favors Saturday night. Yeah,
he absolutely did. And, as far as what goes next, and I want to get our fans involved a little bit in this because we posted a question about what's next for Robert Guerrero on our Facebook page today. And a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions on this. One of them, Vicente Sanchez, he said that, with Guerrero being the interim WBC champion, that makes him the #1 contender for Mayweather, which we were discussing. He's thinking that that could marinate for a while, and it might make a lot of sense for Guerrero to maybe go after a guy like Jan Zavic or Malignaggi. Malignaggi in particular has the WBA belt. Now that Ricky Hatton's lost, maybe that's a makeable fight. He also talked about, and this was a conversation on the thread, about Guerrero versus Victor Ortiz. I think that's a fight that's a little too soon to happen, but Ortiz is another guy that you throw in and he's always going to make an exciting fight. And now that you have the argument both of those guys are the only two to beat Berto, that to me has an instant classic written all over it as well.
And another possibility for Ortiz when he comes back from that jaw injury, I mean he may not want to fight this guy because he doesn't want that jaw dislocated
again. First fight out I wouldn't, but Ortiz has never really backed away from a challenge.
But I'm not talking about Guerrero. I'm talking about Ortiz fighting Keith Thurman. It was also on the card. And talk about jaw shattering hits. Keith Thurman, what a find. This guy used to fight local cards in Tampa, Florida, and now he's on the big stage, and he's been impressive, both times out. Last time he fought a journeyman. This time he fought a good fighter in Carlos Quintana, who, he's past his prime, but Quintana came out on the undercard of the, was it the Chavez fight, or was it the Mayweather Cotto fight?
Yeah.
And he knocked out DeAndre Lattimore.
6 rounds, pretty impressively.
An impressive win for him, and for a while they talked even about matching up Quintana against Canelo Alvarez. When Canelo fought Jose Cito, he was one of the finalists. And now Keith Thurman, unheralded fighter, still young, still raw, comes out and knocks him out. I mean, he destroys him.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that's dangerous for anybody in the boxing game.
When I first heard Keith Thurman's name, it was when he was rumored as an opponent for Marcos Maidana, a few fights ago when he was still at 147 pounds, and I was like, all right, Maidana's going to fight, this no-name and probably beat him. Maybe it was a good decision for Maidana to pull out of that fight, seeing what Keith Thurman has, in his possession as far as terms of power goes. I made this comment to you the other night that if I would love to see Keith Thurman, Alfredo Angulo, and James Kirkland in a perpetual round-robin tournament that lasts for the rest of their careers, because those 3 guys at 154 pounds are must-see TV. I mean, every single time
and you don't have to schedule a fight for more than 3 rounds. No. They'll be over within 3 rounds.
Yeah, I wow. I just the power that he has. Every single time he threw something at Quintana, you just saw Quintana break into a shell. I mean, he was doing everything he could to not get hit, and that was his strategy until he got knocked out. He's truly a powerful fighter, unpolished still. You'd like to see him step up in competition, but wow.
Yeah, I'd like to see him against a guy like Canelo Alvarez, or you mentioned Alfredo Angulo.
No one's gonna want to fight this guy.
Punchers, though. But you know what? This guy probably did himself a disfavor by looking that good, because now promoters are going to keep their fighters away from him. I hope he gets big fights, and I hope he continues fighting. With that. I forgot what the hell I'm trying to say.
Keeps fighting.
He just keeps fighting.
Yeah.
He keeps fighting. Every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, we want to see Keith Thurman fight. These are the type of fighters that you want to see.
Right. And
what I also like to see are his post-fight interviews.
Oh my gosh.
They're funny.
They're so fantastically terrible. Really, in this last one, he called out Floyd Mayweather. In this one, he said he wants the world.
He wants the entire world.
He wants to fight the whole world.
And the way he looked, I wouldn't be surprised if he could knock out
90%
of the world. And David, I know you're excited for this Saturday. Every time Miguel Cotto fights, it's like your Super Bowl. It's your favorite fighter. He's fighting Austin Trout. It's a very interesting fight because Cotto, he still has it. He looked impressive against Floyd Mayweather, albeit he lost 9-10 rounds in that fight.
Right.
But he was fighting the best fighter in the world. But he's fighting a guy in Austin Trout who can box and can make this fight really ugly and can make it an uncomfortable night for Miguel Cotto.
That's honestly what I expect, and we talked about this when the fight was made. Stylistically, I don't like this fight for Cotto for the reason you mentioned, and I can see it turning in a lot of ways to the way the Joshua Clottey fight did, which is, should Cotto get into his body attack, which is what I think he's going to use to go against Trout, who really, granted, he's a belt holder, but he's unproven at this point. He's really, the biggest name on his resume is, Delvin Rodriguez or Rigoberto Alvarez,
right,
which are really not named opponents. He hasn't fought
Canelo's brother.
Exactly. When your biggest, credible opponent is just known for being some other guy's brother. So I think that body attack is going to be important, and I think that also means that we might see Trout, who's already a good defensive fighter, go into a shell and maybe kind of retreat. I don't like this fight for Cotto. I do think he wins, and I hope that those body punches rack up for him to result in maybe a mid to late round knockout. The over-under on this fight in Vegas is 8.5 rounds, which implies that a lot of people do think Cotto's body punching attack is enough to secure him an early knockout. But it remains to be seen. Trout is on a big stage, and he wants to impress. I think he's in a position where he will put up his best effort, and you shouldn't expect anything less from either of these guys who both come out to fight every single time. I think Cotto's going to win by late stoppage with a body attack that really does wear Trout down, but we'll see what happens.
I'm picking Cotto as well. He hasn't fought a fighter the caliber of Miguel Cotto. Cotto's been in there with everybody, and he's going to make it difficult for Austin Trout. Austin Trout will make it difficult for a few rounds, like Yuri Foreman made it difficult for a few rounds, but at the end I think Cotto will prevail. And before we go, one more thing, Ricky Hatton. I was kind of sad to see him lose.
I was too, and a lot of people, I saw an article on Boxing Scene that I took exception with because it implied that Hatton was outclassed in this fight. I didn't see that. I saw Ricky Hatton come out, look pretty sharp for a majority of the rounds in that fight. He's still Ricky Hatton, meaning that he was, getting hit in the face with just about everything that was thrown at him.
Right.
But that's always been his MO is to get hit and try to fight back and, pressure. Still had that left hook to the body, which is one of his better punches, but around the 6th round, it seemed like Sinchenko started to figure him out. That left hook to the liver is a punch that would have dropped anybody. I don't think that he should hang his head low. It's unfortunate that he lost in the way that he did in a comeback fight, but it's the fight game. He's 34 years old. He's been out 3.5 years. It's not baseball. It's not, you can't just have an off night. You have an off night in boxing and you're down on the canvas, and that happened to Ricky Hatton.
But it's a good end for the year, with the Hatton fight, Guerrero Berto, now this week Cotto Trout, and then the following week we're going to be previewing Pacquiao Marquez.
And then Amir Khan returns the week after that. So fights to the finish.
Great way to end the year, and a great way to end boxing during dinner as well. We're waiting for our dinner. We got some bread over there. RANDAZZO'S, one of the best restaurants in Miami, regardless of...
an open, empty belly right now, and I can't wait to eat.
Let's eat then. See you next week.